Okay. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله الله تعالى بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. أما بعد, let me begin with a humble request. Do we have any water here? Just one bottle of water. Jazakallah khair. طيب. So the title of the segment, or the title of the title of the program for the weekend is The Ties That Bind. And basically what we'll be doing through the weekend is talking about the Islamic guidelines for interpersonal relations. We'll be covering relations with one's parents, raising children, relationships with other Muslims, relationships with non-Muslims, the husband and wife dynamic, etc. So we'll be covering interpersonal relations from a number of angles. But before actually diving into the topic and taking these individual interpersonal relationships, I want to begin with an introduction which I've entitled Ad-Deen al-Mu'amala wa Ahsan al-Mu'minin Imanan Ahsanuhum Khuluqan. Jazakallah khair. Which basically means religion is interpersonal relations, and the most faithful believer is the one with the finest character. And the purpose of this introduction is to demonstrate convincingly the importance of the topic of good character and fine morals in Islam in general, and the significance that Islam has placed on interpersonal relationships in particular. And I find this introduction particularly necessary because of the widespread lack of importance assigned to these two topics within the Muslim community, especially amongst Muslims who are concerned with matters of aqeedah, al-i'tiqad, as they should be, and who attribute themselves to the Sunnah and strive in earnest to pattern themselves after the Prophet ﷺ and his companions Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, and avoid every innovative belief and practice. So they in particular seem to be very unconcerned about these issues. And before I continue with the introduction, I want to confirm this. I want to see a show of hands. When's the last time you heard a khutbah about birrul walidain, being good to your parents, the rights of parents? When's the last time you heard a khutbah? Just anybody. Has anyone that they can remember heard a khutbah on this topic in the last 10 years? No. Huh? Okay, once? Maybe once, maybe twice. Once, twice in 10 years? Like, anybody else? Once in 10 years. Huh? Once, twice? Many times. Khutbah, locally. Yes. MashaAllah, like you're mahdud, Shaykh. You're lucky. Tafadhal. Once in 10 years. Anybody else? Actually, I think back home 3 or 4 times where? I go to school on Sunday. Sunday school? Yeah. No, I said khutbah. Khutbah Jum'ah. Somebody went to a masjid and the khatib gave a khutbah Jum'ah, birrul walidain, honoring your parents. Huh? Yeah, I think I remember. How many times? Once. In 10 years, once. So shuf. So we have one person in the whole audience who says, I've heard it multiple times. Huh? Several times. Okay, 2 people say several. Everybody else? No. Khutbah was centered around. Khutbah centered around birrul walidain. This is my topic, birrul walidain. I'm going to teach the people. Maybe once. Like once, 10 years, man. Like, give you another example. Like, all right. When's the last time you heard a khutbah about smiling being a charity? Anybody ever heard a khutbah about smiling being a charity? Nobody said several about that. Many times about smiling being a charity. Khutbah. طيب. All right. طيب, anybody attended a conference or seminar that was centered around character? Centered around character. And character was actually what they talked about. Because yeah, I've been to those where that's the title, but then when they get into it, they talk about everything but. Do you guys see where I'm going with this?
I did want 40 hadith on the Islamic personality.
Mm-hmm. When was that?
This is maybe within the last 3 years.
Within the last 3 years?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
So one seminar last 3 or 4 years, and they actually talked about it.
That was the whole seminar.
And they actually talked about it.
Yes.
Now I understand it was a theme, alhamdulillah, but still it's rare. You get my point. The point I'm trying to make is that this is something that people just don't want. They don't talk about. Generally speaking, to the point that we have a group of people, and yeah, you might have one or two people say, I heard it several times. Okay, good for them. But generally speaking, I'm going to be honest with you, I have never heard a khutbah on smiling. I've never heard a khutbah on bil walidain. And if you're a parent and you're struggling with your children and they don't get this and they can't hear it from you because they think, oh, you have an ulterior motive, of course you're going to say that because you have something to gain. They need to hear from someone else and they're not hearing it from because nobody's talking about that. And then sometimes you ask yourself, you sit in the audience, if you attend a khutbah or you attend a mosque and you're attending several khutbahs and you ask yourself, man, it's like, where do they come up with the topics that they talk about? What made them think that, yeah, this is what the people really need to hear about? You follow me? It also shows to me, that people are so out of touch with what? With the people, the audience, and they're out of touch with their reality. They're out of touch with what's really going on and what the people really need to hear. That being said, this is one of the reasons why I thought it was such a pertinent and relevant topic, and I'll present this introduction in the form of a series of foundational points. So foundational points I want you to bear in mind for the entire weekend. The first one, Islam is not merely a religion, it is a complete and perfect way of life. Islam is not just a deen, it's a way of life. Islam does not just instruct people about theology and rituals. It doesn't just teach people what to believe and how to pray. Rather, it goes beyond that and instructs people how to live and conduct themselves, not only to be at peace with their Creator, but also with themselves, with their fellow man, the animal kingdom, and the environment. Islam teaches you all of those things, not just how to worship Allah. Being a Muslim in the true sense of the word means wholly embracing all of the teachings and tenets of Islam, not simply those which we find agreeable or easy. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أُدْخُلُوا فِي السِّلْمِ كَافَّةً وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. O you who believe, enter into Islam completely and do not follow the footsteps of Satan. What are the footsteps of Satan? To pick and choose what you want to follow. I follow this because I like it. It's agreeable to me. But this is not agreeable, so I'm not gonna accept it. Don't follow the footsteps of Satan. No believers, follow what? Accept all of Islam. The second point, religion is interpersonal relations. Ad-deen al-mu'amala. There is a famous statement that is often attributed to the Prophet ﷺ and deemed one of his traditions that says, or that goes, ad-deen mu'amala. Religion is dealing with others, or religion is how you deal with others, or the crux of religion is how you deal with others, however you want to translate it. Al-Imam al-Albani, rahimahullah ta'ala, the great muhaddith and scholar of hadith, has clarified that there is absolutely there's no basis for this statement in the books of hadith literature. In other words, this is not a hadith. This is not a hadith. There's la aslahu. There's no basis for this in the books of hadith literature. However, that doesn't mean that it's not true. The meaning of this adage, if what is intended by it is that interpersonal relations are a significant part of the religion and they warrant attention. That's what a person means when they say ad-deen al-mu'amala. They mean, look, Interpersonal relations is important in Islam. It's an integral part of Islam. It's something which warrants attention. It warrants the Muslims' attention. If that's what they mean by it, then that is true, and it's supported by a number of Islamic proofs. The first one is ayah number 36 from Surah An-Nisa, which is called by the scholars of Islam Ayat al-Huquq al-Ashara, the verse of 10 rights, or the verse which lists 10 rights. And in that verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. Worship Allah and do not associate any partners with Him in His worship. So that's the first right. The right of who? Allah. So he says, وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Then he mentions who? The right of the parents, and be good to your parents. وَذِي الْقُرْبَى, and your nearest relatives. وَالْمَسَاكِينَ وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ. And he goes on. So he mentions, he says, وَالْمَسَاكِينَ, the indigent. وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى, the neighbor who is a relative. وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ, the neighbor who is a non-relative. وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ, and the person, some said it means what? Your close friend, and some people said it means your what? Your spouse. وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ, and the wayfarer. So Allah is mentioning the rights that all of these people have over who? Human beings, and how they're supposed to interact with them. Allah made this what? An ayah in the Quran clarifying that, look, oh man, don't think that you only have to fulfill Allah's rights. You also have to fulfill the rights of who? Of human beings, and you have to interact with them in a way which pleases Allah. Tells you interpersonal relations what? Part of the deen. Also we have the hadith collected by a Muslim on the thought of Abu Hurairah, in which the Prophet ﷺ, he said, حَقُّ الْمُسْلِمِ الْمُسْلِمِ sit. The rights which one Muslim owes to his fellow Muslim are 6 rights. Means that, listen Muslim, you want to be a Muslim? Then know that the Muslims have rights over you that you have to what? Fulfill. You have to interact with your fellow Muslims in a certain way. This is part of what? Part of the deen. Ad-deen al-mu'amala. We also have the hadith collected by Muslim on the authority of Abd'Llah ibn Amr, in which the Prophet said, let he who wishes to be distanced from the fire يُزَحْزَحْ عَنِ النَّارِ وَيُدْخَلَ الْجَنَّةِ تأتي منيته وهو يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر وَلْيَأْتِي إِلَى النَّاسِ مَا يُحِبُّ أَنْ يُؤْتَى إِلَيْهِ. He said in this hadith, let he who wishes to be distanced from the fire of hell and entered into paradise, let him, this person who wishes to achieve these 2 things, these 2 objectives, let him meet his demise. Let death come to him while he believes in Allah and the last day, and let him also give people the treatment that he himself would like to receive. Now you mean to tell me that al-mu'amala, dealing with us is not part of the deen, not an integral part of the deen, and Allah and the Prophet connected it with what? With an entry into paradise and being protected from the hellfire? It's an integral part of the deen. How you what? How you deal with others? Because your hereafter can depend on it. Your success in the hereafter can depend on it. So we also have the hadith collected by Bukhari, also on the authority of Abdullah ibn Amr, in which the Prophet said in the hadith, Al-Muslim man salim al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadi. Al-Muslim man salim al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadi. He said the Muslim is the one from whose tongue and hands other Muslims are safe. Note, out of all the qualities the Prophet could have chosen to say, this is what? This is what signifies the Muslim. This is how you recognize the Muslim. This is how you know if a person is Muslim. People came to the Prophet all the time, and they would say, Mal Islam, what is Islam? And the Prophet would say different things. On this occasion, he said, Al-Muslim man salim al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. The Muslim is the one from whose tongue and hands other Muslims are safe. Out of all the qualities the Prophet could have chosen to demonstrate true commitment to Islam, he chose what? He could have chose beliefs. He could have chose the prayer. He could have chosen physical appearance, beard. Oh, you want to know a Muslim? Look at the guy with the beard. You want to know a Muslim? look at the guy with the short thobe. When no Muslim, look at the woman with what? The hijab and her face covered. Out of all those possibilities, he chose interpersonal relations. The Muslim, you can recognize him by how he treats what? Other Muslims. Subhanallah, Allahu Akbar. Something that what people don't even what? It doesn't resonate with people. But yeah, it is a big deal in the sight of Allah and His Messenger. How you what? How you treat your fellow Muslim. Finally, we have two ahadith which demonstrate this indirectly. A lot of people might miss this when they read the ahadith or these two ahadith, but it's right there, what? Just not on the surface. You have to look deeper and really ponder, but reflect upon the hadith where the Prophet said, "Udibat imra'atun fi hirra." A woman was punished because of a cat. Habasatha hatta matat, which she confined to her home until it died. La hiya at'amatha aw tarakatha ta'kul min hashash al-ard. Neither did she feed the cat, nor did she let it out to go and seek its sustenance from what? From pests in the earth. Mice, rodents, snakes, whatever the cat might capture and feed itself with. The woman didn't do this or this, and Allah punished her for that. Punished her for how she treated what? A cat. If Allah is going to punish a person for how they treat a cat, how much more is He going to punish someone if they mistreat another human being? Allahu Akbar. ثم بعد ذلك we also have the hadith on the other side of the coin where the Prophet said that a woman who used to work at night. Does everybody know what that means? A woman who worked at night? Good, alhamdulillah. Al-fikra wasalat. A woman who used to work at night, she was walking along a path. And I mean, her sin is a huge sin. It's a total abomination. Okay? And we could venture to say that because of her sin, she's cursed by Allah. Walking along a path, cursed woman, feels thirsty. Comes across a well. And so obviously, I'm thirsty. Well, I'm going to go down and get something to drink. So she did that. Comes out of the well, and what does she find? Lo and behold, there's a dog there, licking the wet earth around the well, trying to quench its thirst and panting from thirst. So she felt sorry. She had compassion for the dog. And she said, قَدْ بَلَغَ هَذَا الْكَلْبِ مَا بَلَغَ بِي مِنَ الْعَطَشِ. This kelp has been afflicted by what I was afflicted by of thirst. So she went down, took off her shoe and filled it with water, came back up from the well and gave the dog drink, quenching its thirst. فَغَفَرَ اللَّهُ لَهَا وَشَكَرَ لَهَا. So Allah forgave her for her abomination, a sin which warrants His curse, and appreciated the deed that she did for this dog. So if Allah is going to reward you for how you treat a dog, how much more so is He going to reward you for how you treat other human beings? This is sufficient evidence, and we could go on, ya ikhwan, to provide proof that ad-deen al-mu'amala, religion is interpersonal relations. That's a big integral part of the deen. ثم بعد ذلك, the third introductory point is the measure of true faith. The measure of true faith. Brothers and sisters, how is true faith quantified? How much does character play into that whole quantification process? More than many of us may realize. And this is something too that I think a lot of people, it's lost on many people. That I want to be a believer. What should I focus on to what? To qualify myself to be a believer. What's the yardstick that I should use to measure myself against to say, yeah, I really do have faith? And how much of that yardstick is good character? It's lost on a lot of people. So we want to mention some texts from the hadith of Rasulullah that show that character is really the true yardstick of true faith. The first one is that good character, exemplifying it, and calling to it was one of the primary purposes of the Prophet's appointment. The Prophet said in the hadith, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمْ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. He said, I've only been appointed to exemplify the exalted standard of character. This hadith is collected by Bukhari in Al-Adab al-Mufrad, and it was authenticated by Imam al-Albani, rahimahullah ta'ala. I've only been appointed to exemplify the exalted standard of character, to complete it, to perfect it, and to show it to people so that they could follow it. That's the primary reason I've been appointed. That's what the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam. If it's something that the Prophet was primarily sent to do, it must be pretty what? Important. And it must be pretty much what? Wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And it must be something that a Muslim can definitely what? Look at himself or weigh himself against to determine where he is as a Muslim. ثم بعد ذلك, we also have the hadith which indicates that this character was from the Prophet's earliest priorities. Teaching character was from the Prophet's earliest priorities. So you have the hadith collected by Bukhari on the authority of Abi Dharr, who said, when I first heard about this prophet in Mecca who was preaching a new religion, I sent my brother. I said, go and ride to that wadi, that valley, Mecca, and see what this man has to say. So when he returned, I asked him, what does he preach? What is he to call to? And he said, إِنَّمَا رَأَيْتُهُ يَأْمُرْ بِمَكَارِمِ الْأَخْلَاقِ. He said, I found him calling to the exalted standard of character, to good manners, good morals, good behavior. This was when the Prophet first started preaching in Mecca, which lets you know that good character was a part of the fabric of the Prophet's message from the earliest days of his call. Now, what we always say, and what a lot of people say, is that the first thing the Prophet called to was a tawheed, aqeedah, belief, the oneness of Allah. That's undisputed. That's indisputed. We don't question that. In fact, if you look at the first ayat that were revealed to the Prophet in which he was appointed as a messenger to proclaim to others, Allah told him, He said, Ya ayyuhal muddathir, qum fa'anzir. O you wrapped in garments, stand and warn. Warn who? Al-mushrikun. Warn them against what? Ash-shirk. Right? Qum fa'anzir wa rabbaka fakabbir. And your Lord magnify, exalt. Exalt him with what? At-tawheed. Right? وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. And your garments purify. If the garments, the outside has to be purified, then what? The inside is more what? Worthy of being purified. Purified from what? A shirk. Right? وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ وَالرُّجْزَ فَهْجُرْ. And ar-rujz, which is the idols, shun. Again, shun what? A shirk. So this message of a tawheed was infused. It was the crux, it was the core of what the Prophet called to and taught from the very beginning. This is undisputed. We don't dispute that. Even when the Prophet would send people to teach Islam, he would tell them to begin with what? A tawheed. When he sent Mu'adh to Yemen, in the hadith of Ibn Abbas, collected by Bukhari, he told him, he said, Ya Mu'adh, إنك تأتي قوما أهل كتاب فليكن أول ما تدعوهم إليه شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله. He said, O Mu'adh, the people you're going to go to are people from the people of the book. But the first thing you call them to be the testimony of faith, the oneness of Allah, at-tawheed. طيب. So we don't dispute that. But the fact that the Prophet called to that does not negate the fact that he also called to what? Good character. And this is the thing that a lot of people just don't want. They don't get. And so they'll call great scholars, and we don't dispute their greatness. And they'll say, was character the first thing the Prophet called to? Was it the priority of his mission, etc.? They'll word it like that. They'll package it. And of course, this guy's going to say what? No. The first thing called to is Tawheed. And then they'll take that back to say, they'll take that to mean, which is not what the scholar said, that, oh, we don't need to be worried about that. We just need to call to what? A Tawheed. But that's not the example of the Prophet ﷺ. So yeah, the Prophet began with Tawheed. That was a primary focus of his mission. But that didn't prevent him from also incorporating and calling to and inviting to and infusing in his early call, the call to what? Good character. This is what Muslims have to understand. It's not an either or. We're going to talk about this a little bit further. It's not an either or kind of thing. That you can be a muwahhid. You can be a strict monotheist and still be what? Nice to people. It's not, they're not mutually contradictory. We can talk about this a little later. But so we have to understand and put things in perspective, because we see these things get thrown in our face via WhatsApp groups and via emails, and Shaykh so-and-so says that what? Character is not from the priorities of da'wah. And they take it out of context. That yeah, is it the priority? La. Is it a priority? Certainly. And the hadith of Abd'Llah proves it. That from the earliest period, the Prophet was calling to what? He was calling to good character. But ثم بعد ذلك, the next sub-point under how truth faith is quantified is that there's nothing more weighty in the scales on the day of judgment than good character. Not prayer, not fasting, not jihad fi sabilillah. None of those are more weighty in the scales than good character. The Prophet said in the hadith, أثقل شيء في الميزان حسن الخلق. The weightiest thing on the scales on the day of judgment will be what? Good character. We also have the Prophet stating that the best thing a person can be given is good character. The Prophet was asked in the hadith, and I'll give you the takhrij later. I don't have the takhrij with me now, but I do have it in my notes. He was asked by one of the companions, he was asked, Ya Rasulullah, ma khayra ma u'ti al-abd. He said, what's the best thing that any slave was ever given? He said, husn al-khuluq. Good what? Good manners, good character, good morals, good behavior. And finally, last but not least, all the other ones we mentioned were something that you can kind of what? They implicitly indicate that character, the yardstick of true faith is character. But this hadith I'm going to give you now is what? It's explicit. The Prophet said in the hadith, he said, أحسن المؤمنين إيمان أكمل المؤمنين إيمانا أحسنهم خلقا وخياركم خياركم لأهلي. He said in the hadith, he said, the most complete believer in terms of faith is the one who has the finest character. And the best of you are those who treat their families the best. This hadith is crystal clear. It's very explicit in stating that the true yardstick of a believer is not necessarily or not exclusively prayer, fasting, and jihad, and these types of things that some people emphasize while dismissing good character. But the Prophet is saying, no, أكمل المؤمنين إيمانا. The one who has the most complete faith is the one who has what? The finest character. The fourth introductory point is a neglected subject. A neglected subject. Despite the emphasis that this subject has received from Allah and His Messenger, and the importance that they have assigned to it, this subject is seldom addressed in Khutab, in these Friday sermons. And we showed that, just by a little quick survey. Nor is it ever or often or seldom is it the theme of seminars and conferences, as we saw that. No one had even heard of one except what? Ali, about 3 or 4 years ago. All right? As a result of this disregard by people active in da'wah and looked up to by the common folk, when the common people look to see what's important in Islam, they're going to look at what? What the seminars are about, what the khutbahs are about. And if they never hear a khutbah about birrul walidain, about smiling, being charity, about the rights of other Muslims, the rights of the environment, whatever it is, they're not going to think that this is what? Important. This gives a subliminal message, or it conveys a subliminal message to people in general that what? These topics are not very important. If they were, they would be talked about more frequently. That's what the people understand. It's a subliminal message that this can't be something that we're really supposed to be concerned about, because why? I never hear the imams talk about it. I never hear the du'at talk about it. So it must not be too important. Subliminally, that's the message that we're sending. Number 5, the character vacuum. The character vacuum. Because these topics are not stressed or stressed enough, and people are under the impression that they are unimportant or trivial, we find that Muslims in general have no amana. They have no amana. You can't I'm going to ask you honestly. Who attends a mosque that you'd say there's at least 300 or more Muslims who are active in that mosque? Oh, come on, you guys go to Canton, right? Who prays in Canton Mosque? Okay, perfect. Okay. So Canton Mosque, 300 active people, okay? Let's say. All right? Or a lot of people. Let's say, okay, 300. These guys are harping on 300. Okay. Khalas. A large large number of people who are active in the mosque, let's say. Okay? Enough Muslims who pray Salat al-Isha, you have maybe 2 ranks, 3 ranks. And that's a pretty big mosque. All right. So which one of them would you leave your car with, your house with, and all of your property if you were going home and you didn't know you were going to come back, or you were going to go to some foreign country for business and you didn't know if you're going to make it back? The number of people that you would be prepared to leave your house with, your car with, and all your property with, could you count them on one hand? Huh? Is that a yes or a no? Would you count all those people who come for Salat al-Isha? Would you give them all? Would you trust all of them? Huh? You could count on 2 hands. That's good. Alhamdulillah, that's good. Tayyib. All right, look around in your community outside the people who come to the mosque. Now, a lot of us deal with Muslims all the time. We're in the meat market, right? Maybe there's a Muslim-owned gas station, a Muslim-owned convenience store, whatever. We deal with lots of Muslims. Would you trust all of them? Huh? Muslims, yeah, Juan. I'm asking you honestly. I'm asking you in general. Maybe I'm framing the question incorrectly. Generally speaking, you know a lot of Muslims. You interact with Muslims. Some of them you know on a more personal level, more intimate level, and some of them you know at a more like associate, hi-bye, pleasantries, etc. level. By virtue of them being Muslims, can you trust them with your property? Huh? Yes or no? It's difficult. Do you feel inside yourself that just being Muslim doesn't qualify them to be what? Trusted. Doesn't mean I can trust you. Do you feel that in general? Yeah, I'm being honest with you. Yeah. You feel like, okay, just because you're Muslim, that doesn't automatically mean I can trust you. I have to know you to a certain level in order to what? To trust you. Just your Islam is not enough to make me trust you. But this is, and I'm telling you, I've been in the Muslim world, and I went over there very naive, living over there. And you think because you're in a Muslim country, and these people are the descendants of the Sahaba, you can what? You can trust them. And they show you repeatedly that they're not worthy of your trust. And it's not something that's just a phenomenon or a trend which is specific to that particular land, but generally speaking, when you meet Muslims and you talk about their experience with a Muslim, they say you can't what? You can't trust them. Even to the point that the early Muslims themselves, when they first accepted Islam, they felt like what? I can trust anyone who says they're a Muslim. But then one of the companions, he said one of the first things that was lifted from the Ummah after the Prophet's passing was al-amana. It was the first thing that was lifted, al-amana. To the point that he said, I used to be able to what? Deal with anyone. Anyone who's Muslim, I can what? I can deal with them. He said, now I only deal with what? So-and-so and such and such. Wallahi, that's how it is today. It's even worse now. It's even worse now. I'd give my car to a Muslim mechanic and I have some disquiet. I'm like, I'm not certain. Have I been beaten by him? Did he really change the part? Did the part really cost that much? Was there something else that he didn't tell me about? This other knocking noise that wasn't there before I took it to him? Did he cause that in the course of trying to repair this thing? You're thinking like this. Why? Because, to be honest with you, the Muslims don't have any what? Amana. They are frequently dishonest. It's not uncommon for a Muslim to what? To lie. Untrustworthy, not dependable, selfish, inconsiderate, impolite, disrespectful. You don't find this in the Muslim community? Amongst Muslims? Even the best Muslims. Okay? And I mean, whether they give them that title or you give them that title. You say, yeah, out of all the Muslims, these are the ones who are what? Closest to what? The way of the Prophet. Whether they give themselves that title, that moniker, or you describe them in that way, the best Muslims, among them are those who have been caught lying or exaggerating facts intentionally, taking things out of context to achieve illicit objectives. So basically, I don't like this person, I want this person to fall out of favor, so I'll actually do what? I'll actually forge a lie about this person. Or no, he actually did this, but this is not what? Not enough to invoke censure. So I have to what? Sensationalize it. I have to embellish it. I'll do that so what? So he'll fall out of favor. This has actually happened. This is not something I'm making up. This is actually, there are actual incidents where people who are what they're supposed to be what? The pious people, the most committed people, and they've done things like this. Some of them enjoy being praised for what they have not done. And Allah talks about al-Yahud in this way in the Quran. يُحِبُّونَ أَن يُحْمَدُوا بِمَا لَمْ يَفْعَلُوا. They love to be praised for what they haven't done. And you find this from what? These what? Pious Muslims who are what? They're the best Muslims, right? Also, they love to be given credit for what they have not achieved. They love to be given credit. Oh, so-and-so is a student of such and such. So-and-so has studied X book and Y book and Z book, memorized this mutun. These mutun. Memorized half of the Quran or the whole Quran. Love to be given credit for what they have not what? Done or achieved. Busy themselves with that which does not concern them. There are issues, ya ikhwan, that just don't concern what? The common folk. Okay? They're not our concern. And the issues that concern them, they what? They're too busy with these issues to what? To spend time on those issues. They investigate and probe into the faults and shortcomings of others. They are envious, and their hearts harbor ill will toward their fellow Muslims. Now this is coming from who? The most pious ones, the most committed ones. This is all indicative of a loss of what? A loss of focus, a rotten core, a superficial faith which has no real depth. Another case of, I'm Muslim, but more so on the outside than the inside. Islam has not penetrated my skin and permeated my heart and soul. It's kind of like what Allah said about those converts who converted to Islam shortly after the Battle of Hunain. And they converted because why? Islam was becoming very strong. They knew that they could not defeat Islam. They couldn't fight Islam any longer. And in order to preserve what? Their lives and their property, they thought it prudent to become Muslims. But they thought, look, when we become Muslims, we're what? We're increasing the numbers of Islam. We're giving Islam a certain type of what? We're giving Islam a certain type of repute. So we should be given credit for that. So Allah describes this whole dynamic and He says, قَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا. The Arab, the Bedouins, they say, we've believed. So, you should be grateful, O Muhammad, because we became Muslims. So Allah said, قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا. Allah said, say, O Muhammad, you have not believed. Okay? لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا وَلَمَّا يَدْخُلْ الْإِيمَانُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. Islam has not yet permeated your hearts. Yeah, you became Muslims on the outside. So He says, قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا لا شوي. قل لم تؤمنوا قولوا أسلمنا ولا؟ لحظة شوي. قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا ولما يدخل الإسلام في قلوبكم. So he said, say, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you haven't believed. You've just become Muslims. And faith has yet to permeate your hearts. Yeah, you're Muslims on the outside. But on the inside, no, not yet. Not yet. Right? So this is how it is, unfortunately, for some people. Because of what? This character vacuum. We're Muslims on the outside, but on the inside, not yet. And we have some work to do. And that's because a lot of people busy themselves with trying to what? Become Muslim from the outside in. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. You become Muslim from what? From the inside out. And that's when you're going to have what? The real Islam. The sixth point, and that's, wallahi, there's a lot of people with gray beards who I've known for years. We've known each other and we've been through thick and thin together. And a lot of us had to learn this lesson the hard way. You don't become Muslim by growing a beard and donning a thobe and khalas. And a lot of us, unfortunately, we were given that impression that we'd arrived because what? Because we could say a few things, okay? Because we could pray behind a sutra. We knew that there was such thing as a sutra and we prayed behind a sutra. And because we grew big beards and we wore certain clothing or certain types of clothing, khalas, we've arrived. And we become the perfect Muslims. Thinking that what? These outside things made us what? The best Muslims. And then we learned over time, the hard way, okay? That what? Being a Muslim is what? Is something that what? Begins from within. Number 6, there is no contradiction between commitment and character. Absolutely no contradiction between commitment and character. It is not uncommon when we talk of the importance of good character and interpersonal relations for someone to say that these are topics, themes of the deviants, themes of the liberals, the liberal Muslims, the deviant Muslims, the Muslims who lack commitment or they lack direction, okay? As opposed to the purists and the vanguards of a Tawheed and Sunnah. As if to say that the two matters are mutually contradictory and opposed. There is no contradiction between holding fast to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and the path of the pious predecessors, the Salaf as-Salih, and assigning importance to good character and interpersonal relations. Because good character is from the Sunnah and from the manhaj of the Salaf. Which is why you find the scholars of Aqidah and manhaj included a section on character, morals and manners in their treatises on creed. So for example, you have Abu Bakr al-Ismaili. He wrote a book on creed. In that book, he had a section about what? Good character. He's talking about creed, talking about beliefs, theology, what a Muslim is supposed to believe. But he felt what? It was necessary that what? He also incorporated what? Good character, because good character is something we're supposed to what? Believe in and practice. You also have Abu Uthman al-Sabuni. He has a book called Aqeedat al-Salaf, Ashab al-Hadith. The creed of the pious predecessors, the proponents of hadith, of the traditions. In that, he also has a section. It's all about creed, beliefs, but in that he has a section in which he talks about what? Good character. At-Tahawi. Same thing. Al-Aqeedah Tahawiyya, he has a section on what? Good character. And Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala has a book, Al-Aqeedah al-Wasitiyya, you all know it. In it he has a section on what? Good character. And he says in that section, if I can remember the quote, he says, وَيَدْعُونَ إِلَى مَكَارِمِ الْأَخْلَاقِ وَيُؤْمِنُونَ إِيمَانًا تَامًا بِقَوْلِهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم أحسن أكمل المؤمنين إيمانا أحسنهم خلقا أو كما قال رحمه الله. So he said something to the effect of, they call, meaning the Muslims who believe in the Sunnah, in their Aqeedah, part of their creed, is that they call to the exalted standard of character. And they believe wholly in the statement of the Prophet in which he said, the believer whose faith is most complete is the one who has the finest character. Mention this where? In al-Aqidah al-Wasatiyah. So there's no contradiction between the two. It's not either or, this or that type of thing. You can be a committed Muslim and still have what? Good character. ثم بعد ذلك, number 7, the deception of Satan. The deception of Satan. Downplaying and belittling the importance of good character, or even worse, encouraging bad character, is from the deception of Satan. You guys know that the shaitan, his goal is to destroy every human being. That's his goal. He made a promise to Allah that he would take as many of Adam's descendants to the hellfire as possible. Okay? And Allah warned us in the Quran saying, Inna shaitan lakum aduwwun fattakhidhuhu aduwwa. Innama yad'u hizbahu liyakunu min ashab as-sa'ir. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, verily, the devil is your sworn enemy. So take him as an enemy. Treat him as such. Verily, he only calls those who follow him to be inhabitants of the blazing fire. That's his number one goal. And the shaitan, in his efforts to achieve this objective, he has many different what? Methods he employs. Many deceptions that he utilizes. One of those deceptions is where he makes you prioritize something which is important, it has importance, over something which is what? Of paramount importance. This is one of his tricks. So you'll find people who busy themselves with mustahabbat, things which are what? Recommend the deen. And they're so busy with the recommended thing that they can't do the obligations. They fail to fulfill the obligations. So for example, you have a person who it's recommended, highly, highly recommended, for a person to pray at night. Highly recommended. So a person will get up and pray all night. Then when the dawn approaches, he'll be so tired, I have to sleep. I have to take a nap. And he sleeps through what? Al-Fajr. So he spent all night doing the mustahab. And then when the wajib came, he was too tired to do it. You have some people who they go out in the way of Allah. They go out calling to Allah. Right? Go out to meet people who have lost their way and to bring them back to what? To Islam. Bring them back to the mosque. Bring them back to Qira'at al-Quran, dhikrullah. They do this. This is a good thing that you can do, right? But they're so busy doing that they're unable to do what? To work to provide for their what? For their families. Providing for their families is what? Wajib. As Allah says, الرجال قوامون على النساء. Men are the protectors, the providers, the maintainers of women. That's one of their primary duties as what? As husbands and fathers and men who are in charge of what? Women. But these people are so busy with this mustahab, this good thing, that they can't do what? The required thing. The shaitan, he loves to do that. This is a trick he uses. And he likes to do this for who? The pious people. Because you can't get the pious people just to commit kufr, to go to a bar, drink alcohol, right? Okay? They've got that down. They're not going to do those things. So the shaitan has to be a little bit more what? Devious when it comes to them. So he gets them through the door of what? Good things. Oh, do this good thing. Do this good thing. Visits them with that. So the shaitan, he comes to these people who are what? Who are very committed. They're into aqidah. They're into the sunnah. They're into a tawheed. And they're into those things. And he tells them, concern yourself with this and do not concern yourself with what? Character. Even worse, put down the people who concern themselves with character. Talk about them. Call them names. So people won't what? Listen to them. And in this way, the shaitan has them doing what? Has them concerning themselves with al-muhim. But forgetting about what? Al-aham. They're concerned with what? Something important, but forgetting about what? That which is what? Most important. Because we said previously that the Prophet said in the hadith, he said, أثقل شيء في الميزان husnul khuluq. That the most weighty thing in the scales will be what? Good character. And we'll conclude with this one, number 8. Human character, ya ikhwani, is 2 types. You have 2 types of human character. The first one is akhlaq jibilliya. Akhlaq jibilliya. Intrinsic qualities, intrinsic character. This is something which is part of what? Your nature. Allah created you with this quality. Some people, ya ikhwan, they're naturally generous. Nobody had to teach them to be generous. They're naturally what? Generous. Some people are naturally kind, compassionate, patient, brave. It just comes natural. No one has to teach them. They don't have to develop it. It just comes naturally. And this is a gift from what? From God, which He gives to whoever He what? Pleases in accordance with the wisdom, which means not all of us will be what? Naturally generous. Amir's naturally generous. Salim, naturally stingy. Just examples. Taban. Right? So, Allah will give this one this quality and give this one that quality. We'll disperse it as He sees fit. And it'll be a natural part of a person's what? An intrinsic part of his nature. And he'll be lacking in other what? Qualities which Islam what? Encourages. The second type of human character is akhlaq muktasaba. Akhlaq muktasaba. Qualities which one has to what? Develop. Which means, even though you don't have the quality, it's something which Islam encourages. And therefore you have to strive to what? To develop it. So in the case of generosity, those who don't have it have to strive to what? To develop it. If they have stinginess, they have to root that out of themselves and try to develop it. So we can never take the attitude, ya ikhwan, I guess the point I'm trying to make is we can never take the attitude of complacency. Okay? I am who I am. These are the qualities Allah gave me. Okay? I'll make the best of what I've been given, but I won't try to what? To improve and shore up some of my what? Failings and shortcomings. La. That basically, once we learn that once we learn that Allah loves a quality, a character, a behavior, a moral, we should try to what? If we don't already have it, we should try to what? Develop it. Okay? It's required so that we can achieve what the Prophet said, because our goal in life is to try to what? To be the best Muslims, best believers, best worshippers of Allah that we can be. That's why we're here. We're not here to make money, not here to procreate, we're here to what? To worship Allah and be the best worshippers we can be. And so we're always trying to do what? To complete our faith, to gather more and more branches of faith until our faith is complete. That's our target, that's our goal. And part of faith is what? These character traits, these qualities which Allah loves. So if I don't have one, I'm trying to what? Trying to develop it. So that said, we're going to present many character traits, specifically those related to interpersonal relations, but many character traits are going to be presented. Qualities that we all should have or possess. Either we have them intrinsically, if we do, alhamdulillah. But if we don't, we need to what? Put that on the list of what? Qualities that when I leave this seminar, I need to try to work to what? To develop. So with that, we'll conclude the introduction. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. You guys have any questions or comments? No questions, no comments. I
made one comment.
تفضل يا شيخ.
In far east countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, no preaching team went there for preaching Islam. Only Muslim traders went there. From their character, they embraced.
ما شاء الله صح. That's a good point. That's a good point. And in most cases, Islam spread, I guess if we say most cases and we don't have data, some people object to that. But in many cases, let's put many, because that's something we can't question. People come to Islam not necessarily because of the sword, they've been conquered, not necessarily because they've been coerced, not necessarily because someone actually debated with them, but because they saw that good character, that good behavior, and it impacted them in such a way, such a powerful way, that they ultimately studied Islam and became Muslims. Sahih. But any other, which tells us, ya ikhwan, that one of the most effective ways to call people to Islam is through what? Through our character. But any other questions or comments, ya ikhwan? Fi shay?
The point that you made about the Muslims have lost the trust.
Mm-hmm.
We hear that a lot of times from Muslims in discussion.
Uh-huh.
They even go to the extent of saying non-Muslims are better than you, better than certain Muslims in terms of amount.
They'll say that. You said they will or they won't? They'll stop short.
They do say that.
Eh?
Sorry about general Muslims.
I mean, that's not correct. We can't. The brother said that some Muslims will go to the extent regarding the whole issue of amana and how a lot of Muslims have lost their amana and they've become untrustworthy. That they'll go to the extent of saying that the non-Muslims are better than you. And this is something we can't. The one thing we have to learn how to do, ya ikhwan, control our emotions and be people who do not transgress the bounds in our discussions about anything. Okay? You can't be a person of what they call al-ghulu, extremism and fanaticism. And that's basically what it is. It's when you tata'adda al-hadd, that there's a limit that Islam gives you. When you transgress that limit, then you're guilty of what? Al-ghulu. And so this type of ghulu, this type of fanaticism, that okay, Muslims don't have a manner, the non-Muslims are better than them. La. Because that's not the sole yardstick by which people are measured in terms of who's better or who's worse. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He basically taught us in the Yarhamukallah, I'm sorry. He basically taught us in the Quran that in so many words that the best non-Muslim is not better than the worst Muslim. Because Allah has His own criteria. And the number one criteria is what? Is faith. Believing in Him. That a Muslim could have many failings that a non-Muslim doesn't have. But that Muslim has one thing that makes him so valued and so honored and gives him so much status with Allah that non-Muslim cannot what? Cannot even come close to his status in the sight of Allah, and that's what? His faith. So yeah, that's inaccurate. We would never say anything like that, and we can't transgress. Again, that's a transgression. It's like, yeah, they don't have a man, they don't have a man. We can say that all day long, but we'll never say what? We'll never get so, our emotional state will now become so heightened that we'll say something which is not, it's not true. It's just not true, and it contradicts the deen. Yeah. طيب. تفضل سليم.
So, would you say that basically some of the biggest problems that we have, both in our families as well as in this ummah at large, will be based on, this aspect as far as the character or lack of character in terms of relationship and rights accorded one to another, both in the home and outside, even on the wider sense in terms of the nation.
Okay. I mean, I definitely would say that this is a problem that it's like it's reached. See, number one problem, it's kind of hard to say number one. But does it rank like one of the top problems? Yes, definitely. That's why really I wanted to talk about this, is because this is a huge problem just in the Muslim community, let alone what? Just beyond the Muslim community, whether we're talking about interpersonal relations between the Muslim community and other communities. There's a lot of transgressions. There's a lot of unfairness. There's a lack of mutual respect. Perfect example would be the sovereignty of the United States has to be respected, but the sovereignty of other nations doesn't have to be respected. It can be trampled on at any given day or time. So yeah, it's a worldwide problem, but it's definitely a problem within our own community that people just don't respect each other, they don't treat each other properly, and they don't even see why they should. So we definitely want to call people's attention to it, because it's just one of those things where it has become so common for people in the Muslim community to mistreat each other and think nothing of it, that at some point we have to start calling attention to it. And you made a good point. It's not just brother to brother, and I mean like Muslim to Muslim, but it's within Muslim households. It's that husband doesn't respect wife, wife doesn't respect husband. Parents don't respect the children, treat them the way they should be treated. Children don't treat the parents the way they should be treated. Relatives don't maintain the ties of kinship the way they should. I mean, it's a huge problem, and nobody's talking about it. You know, I come from a particular community where you hear all the time, and this always happens when you're a newcomer. People will come and tell you, yeah, I don't come to the mosque anymore because this thing happened, that thing happened. You don't really know what happened, you don't know who the players are, and you're hearing just one side. And usually when you have something like this, there's three sides of the story. His side, her side, or his side, and the truth. Right? So at any rate, people will say, I don't come to the community more because this person insulted me. This person humiliated me. There's a double standard. These people get treated this way. These people, you'll hear this all the time. It's not infrequent or uncommon. Then on top of this, you'll experience where people make a mistake, for example. They make a mistake, there's a dispute, and you actually see a person get publicly humiliated and get ganged up on by other Muslims. And you say to yourself, subhanallah, how can Muslims behave this way? And if you were to object, you'll be told off. So, like I said, a culture has been created where this type of behavior is acceptable, and people who speak out against it are basically silenced. So then you know that you have what? A huge problem. And if you look at the Quran, if you just study the Quran, you're going to see how the Quran is teaching you over an ayah that we just sometimes pass by, teaching you that this is such an important aspect of how a Muslim is supposed to conduct themselves, whether we're talking about with non-Muslims or Muslims, right? So Allah says, for example, He says about calling the non-Muslims. He says, "Udu ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah wal maw'idat al hasana wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan." Subhanallah. Come on, kuffar. It says, call to the way of your Lord bil hikmah, wisdom. Al maw'idat al hasana, beautiful preaching. And debate them, what? In the best way. Subhanallah. Non-Muslims, right? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Musa and Harun to Fir'aun, one of the greatest tyrants who ever lived, He said, وَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Said, and say to him what? A kind word. Speak to him kindly. Okay? Perhaps he will reflect or fear Allah. And actually, one of the, it happened later on in the time of Islam, that a person came to a particular caliph. And when he came to that caliph, he was speaking to him in a very, crude and disrespectful, harsh manner. And the caliph, he had enough clemency, enough patience and tolerance to basically absorb that, although he was in a position to what? Yeah, he was in a position to discipline the man, to say the least. And then he responded, he told him, he said, Layyin kalamak. He said, speak softly, speak respectfully, speak kindly. Because Allah sent someone better than you to someone worse than me and told him, speak softly, speak kindly. So even in this verse, which is talking about another prophet, Allah is teaching us that what? Yeah, there's a way that you what? You deal with people, even non-Muslims. Like suppose they were what? Muslims. Then that has to definitely what? You have to definitely what? Right? Raise your game, right? Lift your game, right? You got to treat them even better because what? The makana. And Allah teaches that as well. So he says in the ayah, says, Muhammad Rasulullah, وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ أَشِدَّاءُ الْكُفَّارِ رُحَمَاء بَيْنَهُم. He says, Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah, and those who are with him, the believers, they are merciful amongst themselves. Right? Again, teaching you, and you might not even pick up on it, but it's right there how you're supposed to what? Treat your fellow Muslim. You also have the ayah where Allah says, He said, خُذِ الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. This is in Surah Al-A'raf. He said, take what is given, enjoy what is good, and turn away from the ignorant. So when this was revealed, Al-Tabari, he said that when this was revealed, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the Prophet Muhammad, he said, Ya Jibreel ma hada. He said, Oh Jibreel, what is the meaning of this? He wasn't clear what he was being asked to do or ordered to do initially, and then his ummah by extension. So he asked Jibreel, what does it mean? You know what Jibreel said? He said, Inna Allah ya'muruk. He said, verily your Lord commands you. And ta'fu amman zalamak. To forgive your oppressor. Wa tu'ti man haramak. And give the one who withheld from you, who refused to give you. Wa tasil man qata'ak. And to join the ties with the one who what? Who cuts you off. So, this is something which is so embedded in the deen, ya ikhwan. But for whatever reason, we've gotten to a point where these ayat, we read them, but they have no practical meaning in our lives. So what we're trying to do is what? Because of that reality, we're trying to basically, blow the dust off these ayat and these hadith and show that, yeah, this is an integral part of the deen. And part of the problem that we're living as an ummah is related to what? Our failure to practice this part of the deen. Al-A'raf, it's 199 and 200. 199, 200 actually the second part, which is, and if an evil suggestion comes, so just 199. Yeah, Al-A'raf 199.
There's one question
Tafadhal.
about the hadith about the woman who gave water to the dog.
Uh-huh.
Is there another version of a man?
Yeah, there's another version of a man, yeah. There's two versions. One a man, one a woman who was baghiya. She worked at night, yeah. But that one's more significant because of her occupation. That's why I mentioned that one. But yeah, there's two narrations. Any other questions? All right, so we'll take a brief break. We'll take a brief break. Yeah, short break. Yeah, change the words. Yeah, definitely. We'll take a short break and then we'll resume, inshallah ta'ala. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد.